Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's presentation, Better App Experiences, How to Improve Mobile App Performance. So before we get started, I'd like to do a quick intro about me and Embrace. So I'm your host today. My name is Colin Contrary. I'm the head of content here at Embrace. And a little bit about me. I'm a father to 3-month-old twin girls, and I haven't had much sleep lately. And that may or may not have to do with the second point I just made. And a little bit about Embrace. We help teams solve every mobile app issue so that they can deliver better mobile experiences. And we'll learn a bit more about Embrace as I continue in this presentation. So first of all, let's talk about why are we here today. So you're here because you are delivering apps at scale. You have a very good handle on what actions users are taking within your apps. You know if they head to the new features, if they're using them, if they're making purchases, if they're successfully onboarding, you know all of that information. But you're struggling with one major piece when it comes to continually delivering great mobile experiences, and that is how can you effectively improve mobile app performance? How do you know when an issue needs attention? And then when you know there's an issue, how can you swiftly jump in and resolve the issue? In short, how can you make sure that you're meeting user expectations as you continue to innovate and ship new features? And that is what we're going to be covering today. So let's take a look at our agenda. So first of all, we're going to start with a quick overview of some of the biggest pain points that mobile app builders around the globe have told us from a recent survey we ran. Then we're going to jump into why improving mobile app performance is so difficult, specifically on mobile. We'll cover pains that mobile teams experience, including with data gaps with their tooling and issues that they have in surfacing the impact of performance issues and then getting to the root cause. And lastly, we're going to cover how you can connect key metrics to user and business outcomes. So that way, when you have some sort of regression in your app, you know exactly who's impacted, whether it's worth fixing, and then you have the data to go ahead and fix it. So without further ado, let's get this thing started. So first, we're going to start with what are some of the biggest pain points that mobile teams are experiencing today? And great news, we recently ran a survey of over 1,000 mobile engineering professionals across the globe, and we compiled the findings into this 2024 Mobile App Builders Report. We talked to many different titles across mobile teams, including engineers, engineering managers, even all the way up to VPs, senior vice presidents, and CTOs. So a broad range of people, whether they're actually writing the code or building and growing teams to continue to grow their mobile apps. And the only condition is that respondents were required to work on either a consumer mobile app or an internal a company mobile app. So it doesn't need to be in the Play Store, but if you're building a mobile app that is business critical, this survey was for you. And so what I want to do, I can't cover all of the insights in this report, so I encourage you to download this report after watching this video if you'd like to learn everything, but I'd like to cover a few key insights specifically around app performance. So the first one is, we asked all of our respondents, considering all of the following aspects of your day-to-day work, which of these are the most important to you personally? And the number one answer was improving the performance of the apps I support. So this is the biggest challenge facing our global audience of mobile teams. It's improving app performance in a reliable way. So second was releasing code with few or no errors. Third was working on new and innovative features. So the biggest priority is improving app performance. And let's see maybe why that's such an issue. So in another part of our survey, we asked, what is the biggest frustration in your day-to-day work? And the number one answer was spending too long fixing bugs. So clearly, if you are wasting all of your mobile engineering time fixing bugs to try to improve mobile app performance, you're probably going to have lower release velocity. You're probably not going to be able to spend as much time building features and growing your app, and that's going to lead to frustration. And look at the next two entries in terms of popularity in this question. So the second most popular response was having too many systems or processes to follow. And this is a common thing we hear about when we talk to mobile teams, mobile engineers, and mobile builders in general, which is there's a lot of systems, a lot of different data sources that they're required to stitch together to understand the end user experiences in their app so that they can go ahead and improve the performance of them. And then the third most common was not having the right tools for the job. So this totally makes sense, right? If you're very frustrated because you're spending too long trying to fix bugs, probably it might be a data or a tooling issue that's getting in the way of that. So let's now cover why this is. Why is the biggest challenge improving mobile app performance, specifically in mobile? So let's get into it. So first of all, as I'm sure you all know, if you're working in the mobile ecosystem, it is incredibly complex, right? You are shipping compiled code across many, many different devices, operating systems to people in many different countries that have very different network connectivities. And even within an app experience, people will be, walking out the door, going through tunnels, having shifting connectivities within sessions. So it's impossible to ship a completely error and bug-free app. It's going to happen. You're going to get errors. You're going to hear about complaints. So the important thing is, how can you find the root cause of those issues when they happen? Because you're going to hear about them from your CTO or your CEO saying that they found a bug in the app and everyone on earth must be experiencing it too. It might come from social media complaints or support tickets. And these complaints might also come from you tracking your own data, right? You missing key business and product KPIs and wondering, is it something within the app that's preventing us from hitting this goal? And so you're going to have this call. And then the most important thing is finding the root cause is very difficult if you don't have complete insight into your end user experiences. And so what's really important is you want to be able to see exactly what your users have experienced in the app so that you can quickly and efficiently resolve app errors so that you improve those user experiences. And one of the biggest things that will help you is if you can detect early these performance risks, right? If you have the data so that you know out of all your users, how are they experiencing that app, right? What's the full user journey they're taking? If things are slowing down, if the app is crashing, if you're experiencing app freezes, which are otherwise known as ANRs, you want to be able to detect when it's impacting 5 users, not 5,000, because that way you can get ahead of issues and you can resolve them without them having a huge impact on your business. And so we've talked a little bit about wanting to understand the user experience, right? And the context I used was having the full session context, right? Having the full user journey, all the technical and behavioral details that someone is using within your app. So let's talk about what is not user experience. So you might be familiar with product analytics tools, and these do not provide you that technical user experience data that you need to resolve app performance issues. So if we look at what are some examples of product analytics tools, you're probably familiar with these, right? Funnel analysis tools, heat maps, session recordings, or session replay. These tools will provide an overview of where users take actions, but they don't provide the technical details behind app performance. So if you see a drop in conversions, for example, it could stem from a variety of factors that are invisible to your team unless you can see what's under the hood. And I like to cover this with a great example. So this is a case study of this company called Curve. They're a fintech company. They are a digital wallet that empowers users to maximize rewards from their credit cards. So users can choose how they earn rewards. They can streamline how they pay for things by combining multiple cards into one smart Curve debit card. They can switch charges from one card to another. So they can accomplish a lot of different payment type things by using the Curve mobile app. And with how competitive mobile is, it's absolutely vital that your first-time user experience gets users to your key value proposition quickly, right? And especially with a payments app, people are going to need to create their profile, right? They're going to need to accept permissions, link up cards, do all these steps before they can even start using their app. And so the last thing you want is to introduce friction in the first time someone uses your app, because they'll probably abandon your app. They might not come back, and that's acquisition spend that just goes down the drain. And so Curve, their big initiative was they wanted to improve that first time user experience. And the challenge that they had is that they could see in their funnel analysis that when users were creating their accounts, that there was a drop off. So they weren't finishing creating their accounts, and the ones that did finish creating it weren't using the app as much as they wanted. And so that's when they went under the hood and they said, well, what is causing this to happen? And what they found is that the account creation flow had a 40% app freeze rate. And what that means is for 40% of users that launched this app for the first time and then created an account, by the time they got to the screen that said, save this account, I want to use this app, the app would freeze on them and then they couldn't use it. So imagine how frustrating that would be and how much churn that's going to cause if that problem goes unaddressed. And the product analytic tools couldn't surface what was going on, right? They needed a technical tool to get to this root cause. And that's where Embrace helped. So they could go in and see, okay, what are all the events that are firing under the hood during this flow? And what they found out is there was an animation that would trigger once someone created a profile. And there was also a data synchronization event. So collecting all that user profile information to then send it to the backend and create the actual user in your database. And the problem is they kind of knew these two things were happening, but it was hard to tell, okay, which is actually, behind it. And then with Embrace, what they could find out is, oh, the animation was happening. The data synchronization was actually blocking the main thread and actually causing the freeze. And so once they saw that that was the culprit, that eliminated a lot of trial and error and guesswork in trying to get to the root cause. And instead, they could pull that work, move it to a background thread, right? Delay it a little bit and prevent it from blocking the main thread and causing freezes. And the benefit of this is the Curve mobile team was able to completely streamline this new account creation flow. So now when they got users to load the app, to want to create profiles, they could do it and get value seamlessly. So the next thing I want to talk about, if product analytics tools is not user experience, well, mobile app monitoring tools are also not user experience. And what do I mean by that? Well, in the mobile app builders report survey that I mentioned, 98% of respondents said that they're using some sort of tool to monitor their mobile app. So 98% have a tool in place, and yet their biggest frustration is they can't improve mobile app performance. Well, one of the problems is a lot of mobile monitoring tools are free and low-cost solutions that don't provide a lot of data, right? So if we look at some of the key complaints with these free and low-cost tools that engineers are using, they don't provide enough functionality to solve specialty issues, right? ANRs, which are app freezes, or networking issues, whether it's networking issues in connecting the app to your backend, right? First-party APIs, or with third-party SDKs that are sending network requests outside of your domain. So if you look at that, data limitations, right? Sampling, not collecting the full picture of user experiences is a big problem. And also, they just don't provide enough data or granularity of data, right? So like that Curve case study, needing to see the exact timing and order of all those technical events to figure out what exactly is causing the freeze. And unfortunately, this makes sense, right? Because the current mobile monitoring solution landscape, these tools are very limited and fragmented. And frequently, when you think of mobile monitoring, you naturally think of crash reporting and error monitoring tools, that those are the end all be all of mobile app monitoring. But those are only the tip of the iceberg, right? If we see the whole picture, we know that user experiences, if you're going to understand exactly what's happening within them, you need to understand app performance, right? When are things running slow? Like, does it take a long time for the app to launch or for people to add items to cart and complete purchases, right? Like, where are things slowing down? Networking, we covered this, but are your network calls failing, right? If you're loading a product screen with a bunch of product images, are they all loading correctly, right? Users don't want to buy products if it's a bunch of blank white boxes in your app. And then logging, right? Thinking of the user journey, like all the steps that happen in order within your app. And analytics, right? Like some of that product analytics data that we were talking about. So really, mobile monitoring solutions are inherently limited. And so it's no wonder why people struggle to improve mobile app performance when tough issues happen. And I have another great example I'd love to talk about. So GOAT, if you don't know who they are the leading and most trusted sneaker marketplace in the world. And they also offer apparel and accessories from over 350 brands. They deliver products to over 30 million people across 170 countries. So they're a very large, very successful e-commerce platform. And like a lot of retailers and e-commerce companies, Black Friday is the biggest event of the year for GOAT, right? With a surge of interested buyers looking for deals. That means it's also the biggest event in terms of managing complexity, right? With new products, new coupons, new promotions, new ads, all of this driving many new users into every single part of the app, oftentimes for the first time, right? A lot of repeat customers, but a lot of brand new people to GOAT might see an ad or a promotion on social media, click a link, end up in the app, and they want to seamlessly understand these product details and be able to make purchases. But all this complexity causes a lot of new types of issues, right? There are issues with deep linking, right? Some of these links leading into the app in unexpected places or untested places where things will freeze or be buggy, right? New crash patterns. So a lot of new products in the app, a lot of new screens, a lot of new complexity in the app that unfortunately might cause crashes, especially when put under the burden of increased traffic due to Black Friday. So they wanted to make sure that their performance could be seamless. In previous years, using Firebase and other limited monitoring solutions, they could not effectively go from user complaints to looking up the user and seeing exactly what happened to put out hotfixes. So as soon as they had Embrace, once they got user complaints for anything, it could be edge cases, deep link issues, new crashes, anything, they could immediately look up the full user session details, figure out what went wrong, and put out a hotfix. And what this allowed them to do was to get ahead of issues so that they wouldn't impact a large amount of users in the app. Instead, as soon as they happened, right, they could proactively detect them, resolve them, and that way they wouldn't linger throughout the entire Black Friday weekend and reduce their ability to allow users to make purchases within their app. And the results speak for themselves, right? They were able to maintain a 99.99% crash-free rating, which is incredible in any context, much less when they're doing it in Black Friday with all that complexity and despite a 48% increase in traffic across their mobile apps. So a great example of why having detailed user session context to quickly resolve issues proactively is far more valuable than relying on mobile monitoring alone. Now, I've got another great case study I want to talk about briefly because we talked about crashes with GOAT. So ANRs are application not responding errors. So in other words, they are app freezes. And Wildlife is one of the largest mobile gaming studios in the world, and they were struggling with ANRs. And these are important because the Google Play Console penalizes apps and games that have technical issues, and ANRs are one of those issues. So Embrace helped Wildlife get their games below the ANR threshold, which significantly increased how frequently their games got featured on the Play Store. So if your mobile app or game relies heavily on organic discoverability for downloads on the Play Store and the App Store, being able to stay below these thresholds for these app stores is crucial so that you're not penalized and you can increase your visibility on these. So Embrace is the best solution out there for solving ANRs. We have multiple presentations on this topic, so I can share some of this with you if you reach out to me after this. I'll have my email in this presentation. But ANRs, I could talk about this for hours and hours, but in the interest of time, I'd like to move on and cover some of the other app performance issues that we're going to cover. So if product analytics is not user experience, mobile monitoring is not as well, back-end observability solutions are also not user experience. And this makes sense, right? They are built to solve back-end problems, right? Back-end observability solutions are focused on infrastructure monitoring and application monitoring, right? They answer questions like, where are transactions happening? Where are transactions running slower than they should be? What's the health of all of my infrastructure? Do I have enough capacity? Or am I over provisioned and I need to spin down some instances? None of those have to do with user experience. They have to do with the state of systems and services. And so it's understandable that if mobile teams are using a full stack monitoring solution from one of these backend solutions, well, if their key value prop is backend monitoring, then what they've built on the front end might not collect the data types, and it might not be as robust a solution as something that's built specifically to help mobile teams solve mobile problems. And I've got a great example I'd love to walk through. So I'm sure you watching this, you've heard of Adidas. They're one of the largest fitness brands in the world, and they have a mobile app. It's called Adidas Runtastic. It's a mobile health and fitness app whose mission is to help users live healthier and more active lives by giving them what they need to track activities, boost performance, and celebrate success in their fitness journey. So this is an app that syncs with wearables, right? You can schedule and record your performance when you go on runs, and then you can look at all your statistics over time so you can see, keep a schedule. Can you increase how far you can run? Basically improve your health and fitness through understanding how your physical fitness is going. And so what the Adidas mobile team struggled with was they had a legacy observability solution. In this case, it was New Relic that was used heavily on the back end. And so the mobile team was using the mobile component of it. And the problem is they wanted to be able to become proactive with issue resolution, and they couldn't do it with that mobile tool because it relied heavily on logging and sampling data. So when an issue would show up, whether through their monitoring or through user complaints, they couldn't figure out the root cause of the issue without having to add logs and release a new version in order to get more context into what was causing the issue. And because the mobile team wanted to release new app versions every 2 weeks, this cut their release time in half because every other release would have to be one that was putting logs in the app to kind of get to the root cause of issues. So they wanted a solution that let them, as soon as there's an issue, go in, see the full details, get to the root cause, and put out the fix right in the next release. And I'll go through an example here. So they had an ongoing data sync issue that they just couldn't make heads or tails of. And this app does a lot of data syncing, right? A lot of health apps do, especially when they can interconnect, right, with wearables, right, like Apple Watch or Garmin devices. As a user, if you are serious about tracking the metrics behind your health, there's nothing more frustrating than when you've just gone out there, finished a run, and then you load the mobile app to see how much progress you've made and the data doesn't get there, right? That's really, really, really bad. So as soon as the Adidas mobile team started using Embrace, they could drill into all these affected users who were having this data loss that was happening from these data sync issues. And what they could pinpoint was these issues tended to happen when the app was in an extended background session. So they knew that something about being in the background was causing this loss of data. And they also were able to find out that it was especially prevalent when devices were in low power mode. And so having these two key pieces of data helped them figure out what exactly is causing the data loss issue so that they can architect the app around it so it could more resiliently sync data in these less than ideal circumstances. And the result was they were able to fix the issue, but moving forward, they were able to achieve 50% faster issue resolution because whenever a complaint happened, they could put out a fix in the very next release. The confidence Embrace gave their mobile team also allowed them to have fewer release candidates before they were successfully delivering a new app version to the Play Store and the App Store. So a great example of not having enough visibility to solve issues efficiently with existing legacy observability solutions, and then what a mobile first solution can provide for you. And so now with that, I'd like to transition to talk about how you can connect key metrics to user and business outcomes, because you're working in mobile, you're tracking all kinds of metrics, right? Whether they're product or business metrics. But the important thing, if you're going to consistently improve app performance, is you want to be able to understand whenever there's a regression or an anomaly, how many users are impacted, how is it causing them to react, right? Are they no longer using your app? Are they taking different behavior within your app? Is it reducing revenue? You want to understand how they're reacting, what the business impact is, so that you can make the best decisions when it comes to improving your app performance. So I want to walk through an ideal flow that businesses and best-in-class businesses around the world are able to achieve this. So as I talk through this, if you're finding any gaps, think through whether you have some sort of visibility gap in your existing mobile monitoring solution. So let's start with this. You have to start with the key product and business metrics. And anyone is going to have these, and they're going to vary depending on the app you have, right? So if you're a social media app, your key metrics might be engagement related, right? Like how many times do people upload new photos or make new posts or like new comments, that kind of thing, right? It could be usage based. If you're a video streaming app or an educational course app, and your key metrics, key KPIs are how many courses do people finish. It could be activation rates, right? If what you're tracking is, what percentage of people complete a profile, are they able to successfully connect devices? Or, if you're an e-commerce company, obviously your metrics are probably going to be revenue based, right? Average cart value, reducing the abandoned shopping cart rate, those kind of things. So you already have these metrics. You're tracking them in whichever tools and platforms you have. Then what you need to do is you need to collect behavioral and technical signals that bubble up to those metrics, right? So if we spell out an example here, like let's take for example a dating app, and let's say that they know that their most engaged users like many profiles, right? They look up people's profiles, they like a lot of them to try to make connections. So if that's the case, some of these key behavioral and technical signals that you would want to be tracking are, right, timing metrics, right? How long does it take someone who likes a profile for that to complete? Because if it takes a long time, people might get frustrated and leave the app, right? Frequency. How many times in a given session do these users like other people's profiles? Is it going up or down over time? And failure metrics, right? How many times, if they click that like button, does it just outright fail, right? These are the signals you can collect from a technical and user action level. But then what you want to do it's important that you track those, but you want to see how do users respond when these issues happen. Because otherwise you're just going to be guessing, right? You're going to see a regression here and there, but if the number of likes drops, 1%, is that an issue? Is it impacting your business? Well, you won't know that unless you know how users react when that happens. So for example, when slowdowns happen, when it takes longer to like a profile, are users abandoning the app immediately, right? Are they force quitting? Are they having shorter average session duration? Frequency, right? When users are liking fewer profiles, is that good or bad, right? It could be good if they're finding matches more efficiently. So it takes fewer swipes within the app to like find profiles that they like and want to connect with. Maybe when people like fewer profiles, they're starting chats quicker and then making matches better. And that's a good thing. But if they're liking fewer profiles, it could also be bad, right? Maybe your matching algorithm has started performing poorly. Maybe you updated the model that runs your algorithm and it takes way more swipes for people to find profiles that they connect with, in which case that's a bad signal, something worth investigating. And also failure metrics, right? Like when liking a profile fails, what do users do, right? Do they try again? Can they just get it to happen? Do they move on to the next person and that's a missed connection they're not going to make? Or do they just force quit and abandon the app? So you need to know how users react so that you can tell if it's an issue that you need to prioritize and solve. And so the next step is obviously you have to prioritize issues, right? Like we talked about earlier, mobile is complex. All kinds of errors and issues are going to happen in the app. There's not enough engineering time and resources in the world to fix everything. So you have to prioritize the issues to solve. So what does that mean in practice? Well, you need to be able to go from an affected user experience. So one person complains, or you jump in and see the sessions where these metrics are changing, and you jump from that to see, okay, what's the full picture? How many users are impacted? And not just count, right? What user segments are impacted? Because with mobile, so many issues stem from many combinations of variables. So you need to get the full picture, right? Like, is the issue localized to specific countries, specific network connectivities, specific device profiles or operating systems, or is it specific to an app version, which is more likely to be caused by some new code that you released, right? Once you can look at these large user segments and pinpoint where exactly are people impacted, then you have a better sense of what fix is needed and whether it's worth fixing. And then that's the last point here, right? You have to go by your business impact, right? Like, is the issue going to negatively impact the business and your users' brand loyalty, right? Are they going to stop using your app because of this issue? Once you know that, then it's time to solve it. And the last thing you want to do once you've gone through the other 4 steps is to struggle to solve it, right? Like that Adidas case study where they had to add logs and release new versions just to figure out if they were near a solution. No, no, no. Once it's a business critical issue and you've prioritized it and you want to solve it, you want complete data. And what that means is you want to be able to immediately identify every affected user session from any metric within your app. If you jump into that, you want to be able to view the issue that's happening within the context of the full technical and behavioral details, right? So what network calls are firing? Is the device state changing, right? Is it going into low power mode? Is the CPU pegging? Are they losing network connectivity? Which screens are they visiting, right? Like where are they jumping around? Are they going into background, going back to foreground? You want the full picture of how they're getting to that issue. Because when you have that, you can reproduce and resolve the issue quickly, and you don't have to do manual steps, right? You don't have to manually reproduce it, get a specific device and click and tap around to like figure out how to reproduce it. You've got the reproduction. It's right there. All the steps are laid out for you. That way you're not guessing at a solution. You can confidently submit a solution in the next version to the App Store and the Play Store. So I've covered all that. If that process, right, if that 5-step process sounds daunting, you might have a mobile visibility problem because the best mobile companies in the world are able to achieve that, right? They're able to start with the metrics that they care about. If there's any regressions, they can immediately jump in, see which users are impacted, how users respond to that issue, jump out from that, right? They can view specific user experiences, but then if they want to know what's the full picture, right? Which user segments are impacted, they can jump out, see that, prioritize it from a business standpoint, and then if it's decided that it's worth solving, they can jump in and solve it immediately with complete data. That's where you need to be if you're going to continue to ship great mobile app experiences. And I'd like to cover this with another great case study that outlines several of those points that I just covered. So Touch Surgery is a surgery tutorial app. So it's used by physicians and medical students to watch surgical simulations in order to learn how to do new surgical procedures. And the Touch Surgery mobile team, before Embrace, was using Firebase as their mobile monitoring solution. So they frequently lacked visibility to solve issues. And one in particular was that users would complain that the app wouldn't start, right? They would launch it and they just couldn't get to a place where they could use the app. It would just hang for a while and then fail. And the problem that the Touch Surgery mobile team had is they had no visibility into the impact of this. Was it affecting 5 users or 15 or 100 or 10%? Or they had no idea. All they had to go off was individual users submitting complaints. So it was tough to prioritize this issue. But if users complained about it, they would jump in, look in their tooling, go through the error logs and whatnot that they had. But it was not enough to understand what was causing the issue. So this was a constant source of frustration with their users, and they just did not have visibility to solve it. So what happened once they started using Embrace? Well, they immediately saw the impact. They could see every single user session and which of them were failing. And what they discovered was this was a huge issue. 15% of every single startup was failing. So imagine that. Imagine with your app, if 15% of the time users tried to launch it, they just couldn't even get to use it, right? That is a huge, huge, huge issue. But better than knowing the impact, they could drill into the affected sessions and see exactly what was causing it. And what they found out was that it was mostly impacting power users. And what do I mean by that? This was a surgical tutorial app, and users could download different surgical procedures that they wanted to learn, right? Whether it's a heart surgery simulation or an appendectomy simulation. And the people that downloaded the most simulations had the slowest startup times, because what was happening when they launched the app is the app was going, checking with the backend, seeing if there were updates to these surgical procedures, and it would download all the updates to them. And so if someone was a power user who had 50 simulations in the app, they would have to sit there and wait until all 50 simulations were getting updated. Now that might take a long time anyway, but they also tended to be using it in hospitals and places with low network connectivity. So with low, limited connectivity, it was taking forever and ever and ever to download these. And what they found is some people were waiting up to 30 minutes for the app to complete startup, and then it would just fail. So once they could figure that out, okay, they could move that simulation update process out of the startup procedure and move it onto background threads. So it would never block the main thread, right? It would never block a user's ability to use the app. And once they did that, they eliminated these types of startups from their app. So users could launch it, they could review, other surgical procedures while they were waiting for the other ones that needed updates to update, and it was getting users to value way faster. And so the result is they were able to reduce, of all their startup failures, they were able to reduce them by 53% with just this visibility into this type of startup failure. And they significantly reduced their mean time to detection for all issues moving forward. Because now when someone submitted a user complaint or that something was broken, they can look up that actual experience, figure out the technical details, and then they can submit a fix without having to guess and pull their hair out. So I think this is a great example of, once you have full user experience data, it opens up a realm of app performance opportunities for you, because you're not guessing at what could be happening. You know what's happening, you know who it's happening to, and you know what you need to do to fix it so that you can deliver better experiences. And so I'd like to wrap up by just summarizing what we've covered today. So we've covered a mobile app builders report, right? That global survey where mobile teams have expressed that the biggest priority they have day to day is improving mobile app performance. And 98% of mobile teams are using some sort of tool to monitor app performance. So clearly there is a gap between the data that the existing tools are providing and where mobile teams need that data to be for them to take swift action. So mobile teams frequently struggle with limited visibility into user experiences. And we covered 3 examples, right? If you are using product analytics and hoping that that will provide enough visibility for you to know which issues to tackle, if you're relying on existing low cost or free mobile monitoring solutions that focus on crashes and errors, or if you're using a full stack solution where the front end is part of an existing observability solution that might not be as feature rich or built specifically for the needs of mobile teams than the tooling is that you need. And the third thing we covered is that how important it is to connect key metrics directly to user experiences, because that way you can track the metrics that matter to your business. But if you can connect regressions and anomalies in them directly to impacted users, you're able to see who is impacted, which user segments, and you can drill directly in to see, okay, what are the technical reasons why? And that allows you to truly become proactive when it comes to improving your app performance over time. So I hope this presentation was helpful in highlighting some of the biggest challenges to delivering seamless user experiences, as well as what best-in-class visibility looks like for mobile teams that want to ship the best mobile apps. So I want to thank you for watching. And if you have any questions, I'd love for you to contact me. So Colin Contrary, like I said, my email is colin@embrace.io. If you'd like to learn more about Embrace and what we can provide in terms of improving those mobile app experiences, you can go to our website, which is at embrace.io. And so with all that, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day.